What's up, guys? We are here with another episode, and today's guest is someone that I'm looking forward to learning about everything he has to offer. And as you guys know, here on the SMO podcast, we are discovering new talent, new entrepreneurs, new speakers to take live action on our stages all around the world, global. And today, without further ado, we have somebody calling all the way from the West Coast, originally from Philly. So I actually like this conversation because, he might be an Allen Iverson fan, maybe a Phillies baseball fan. We'll figure out what we got here today. But no other than Colin Patrick. How are you feeling today, Colin?
Feeling good, feeling excited, happy to be here.
I love it. I love it. For those that are watching you right now, Colin, kind of tell us, like who are you and what is it that you do?
Sure. Um, I always like to introduce the fact that above all else, I'm a father first. That's the most important thing to me. It's, the center of my world. It's the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. Basically, I'm a speaker who brings science to trauma, loss, grief, heartbreak, life changes, season changes. Basically, there's a lot of motivational content online that tells you can do it, think positive, think happy thoughts. There's not a
Mm,
lot of science behind how to take those steps or what's actually happening inside of your body, inside of your
mm,
mind, different changes or stages that you're going through.
mm,
I try to provide science backed neuroscience biology behind, hey, this is what's going on in your brain when you lose your job. Hey, this is what's happening in your brain when you go through heartbreak or when you lose a family member. Why you can't seem to get unstuck from these moments of grief or loss or trauma. You keep replaying them and living in them. So essentially,
mm,
the steps that I take is, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and unfortunately, sometimes it feels like it's working against you, but more often than not, just doing what it's programmed to do.
mm. I love that. I love that. And I actually love neuroscience because I actually study that myself, looking to get a PhD into it right now.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, neuroplasticity, I really do like that. I like where you're using it too. I use it in more so in the marketing world. So I like the fact that you're using it in the trauma world. So I think I'm with you, man. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to this conversation because yeah,
absolutely.
let's dive deep into exactly that. Like what I guess initially, like what pushed you to take this path serious?
Sure. So I was involved in, I guess, what I would consider sort of a life-changing motorcycle accident. I've been
Mm,
riding motorcycles for about 16 years now, and by the grace of God, had never had anything really that serious happen to me.
mm,
At the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was involved in a motorcycle accident that completely changed my life. It stole my mobility from me for about 4 months. Um,
wow.
2 to 3 major surgeries rebuilding my right leg. So everything from my knee down to my ankle is essentially steel and titanium. In
Mm,
that time, being bedridden, stuck in bed, I fell into probably the deepest depression that I've ever experienced in my life. Through that, I realized that I had an opportunity to live in that place and continue to be sad and woe is me and my life has changed forever and how do I get through this? Or take a serious deep dive into neuroplasticity and the changes that I'm able to take to sort of get myself out of that place. Through that, I realized that this pain of mine holds some purpose, it holds some value. There are people out there that are going through seasons of change or maybe heartbreak, loss of mobility or accidents that have
mm,
taken their job, things like that, where I felt it would be a disservice to not take what I've learned through my own experience and
mm,
be able to share it with people who may find themselves in a similar position. Unfortunately, after the accident, the romantic partner that I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, we separated ways due to the stress of finances and, sort of having to be a nurse to me for 4 months. So
mm,
not only was I rebuilding my body and trying to learn to walk again, I'm now sort of picking up the pieces of a broken heart and trying to
mm,
continue my life in that way. So that's when I realized that my lived experience had the real potential to help people not only who are maybe going through something medically, but also, something spiritually, emotionally in
mm,
their own lives. It felt almost divine, essentially, that I was going through this in a period of time where I realized, you know what? Serious change needs to happen in my own mind. And I want to pass the ability to change,
mm.
to others that feel lost or hopeless or stuck in a season of change where they're not sure what the next step should be.
I love that. No, I love that a lot, man. And I mean, just coming out of that itself, I mean, what is something that you struggled because it obviously pushed you into this space. So like what's something that you struggled with that people just wouldn't expect?
So there was moments where I would find myself in bed, sort of ruminating or stuck in this loop of, first, could I have gotten out of the way of this accident? Could I have done something
Mm,
to have avoided this major life change, essentially? Could I have swerved left when I went right? Could I have hit the brakes sooner? And so I was sort of stuck in this loop. And
mm,
then obviously the separation, from my romantic partner, again, same place. What could I have said differently 6 months ago? How could I have shown up differently? Or how can I have done these different things? And
mm,
it took me understanding that, from a really a neuroscience place, I had become addicted to that dopamine release of figuring out this fantasy solution, of ruminating on this past experience and sort of, for lack of a better word, really becoming addicted to the solution of how I could have changed it or how I could have made it better. And in
mm,
that, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm sure there are a ton of people that are stuck in this loop that can't seem to get themselves out of this cycle of rumination
mm,
or yearning or thinking about how things could have been different. And that's what really propelled me wanting to start posting content on social media and reaching out to people who were sort of finding themselves in the same space. Because when I had an understanding of what my own brain was going through, on a
mm,
biological and neurological level, it helped me become an observer of those emotions rather than placing so much shame and guilt onto myself of why can't I get over this? Why can't I be better? I
mm,
learned, oh, my brain is running the process. It's going through the exact process that it was built and trained to do. And eventually there will come a time where it's run its course and I'll be on the
mm,
other side of it running its course.
mm. I love that, man. No, I honestly, I'm with you the whole way. I feel right now when someone comes to you in this situation, because I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Like when someone came to you struggling, and I know everybody comes in a different place of struggle because everybody's struggle, it looks different,
Sure.
but it feels the same. So if they came to you struggling, like what's something, I guess, maybe possibly just the one thing you'll start looking at that you'll help them fix first?
So typically when people come to me and they're in this place of change or they're in this place of feeling stuck, I really like to identify like what is the driving factor behind this? What has sort of brought you to this place? And now that you're in this place, what do you feel is your biggest hurdle or your biggest challenge of moving on from this place? Once we have sort of figured out maybe the root cause of the issue or the life circumstances that have created this, then I like to run through sort of the neuroscience. Now, obviously, I don't just dump science facts because that essentially, I'm not a science lecturer, right? That becomes like, okay, well, I'm just listening to this boring science talk. But what I do like to do is explain, the neuroscience behind this place of stuck or this loop that they're in and give them the ability to remove some shame of why can't I be better? Why can't I
Mm,
get out of this loop? What's wrong with me that I'm stuck here for so long and can't
mm,
get better? I think it's really important to remove that shame and remove the blame that they're placing on themselves. Because at the end of the day, it is you, and there are some things that you could be doing, but realistically, you're really stuck here because your brain is keeping you stuck here. That's
mm,
exactly what's happening. And if I can tell you or guide you in the steps that we can take in the place that you're in to help yourself pull you out of the place that you're in, then you can start to take the positive steps towards reprogramming sort of that neuroplasticity that you have found
mm,
yourself stuck
mm. Yeah, man. I mean, I love what you're saying. Okay, because this is I feel like this is a conversation for the nerds of rewiring.
in.
and and talking about it in this standpoint allows me to think about a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people have that one person that they can just talk about right now. Like, hey, this person is struggling with this. This person needs this help, or they've been stuck here. Maybe something that happened to them in their childhood, and it's just been stuck there for a long time. And I guess what's the thing that they can improve like today to like improve their situation? Like what's that framework? Or I guess that
Yeah.
even not to give out too much of what you do, Colin, but I guess what's that framework that you're looking at so that they can change that situation today?
Yeah, so basically, I like to start in letting people know that, your brain is essentially a muscle that can be retrained, and we can grow new neural pathways. And you hear it all the time, but your life becomes what you think. You create your own reality, which, without getting really woo-woo about it, is the truth. What you think and what you constantly think about strengthens in your mind and in these pathways.
Mm,
So, when I first started going through this, and I've now, helped people do this, I challenged myself to 1 week and then 14 days and then, 28 days of radical positivity, radical optimism, where
mm,
you're training, for lack of a better word, your brain to view life differently. So yeah,
mm,
there's going to be hard days and there's going to be tough times. If
mm,
you can remind yourself, I'm choosing radical positivity today. I'm choosing radical optimism today. We're going to start to fire off those new neural pathways where, instead of waking up and thinking, "Oh my gosh, another day, another 24 hours of this terrible situation I find myself in," hopefully you can wake up and you can say, yes, today is going to be tough, but I'm choosing to find the happiness or the joy in the small moments that I can identify. And that, hopefully, at the end of that 30 days, now it's automatic. Now you wake up and you're like, I can't wait to see what life has for me today. I can't wait
mm,
to see the challenges that I can overcome and accomplish today. And you start to really pull gratitude and joy and happiness out of life, rather than living in this place of, oh my gosh, another 24 hours. I don't know
mm,
if I.
mm. I love that. And it just kind of goes back to it really does. Like you actually speak your reality, and because your words, there's an inner voice and there's an outer voice, and that inner voice really does fire off your neural pathways, and your brain only gives you the patterns to everything you've been speaking inside.
Right.
So I really like that, and I like what you talked about with expecting a radical day. I think that's a really great perspective for the person right now that's kind of stuck. Like they're like it's just not that easy for them. They're having that. For me, I'm a scriptural based reading, so I look at the renewing of the mind of Romans
Mm,
12:2, and it goes right back to neuroplasticity.
sure.
But it's they seen things, they heard things, they know things, and it's just hard for them to get out of that. Like how do you work with that person? Or maybe it's a finance thing. Maybe they just been stuck in this finance loop that they just don't expect anything, because I feel like expectation is the principle of what Jesus was talking about. So
I'm glad you brought up expectation. I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day about sort of what we expect out of life. And when we start to place these expectations on our day or a new job or maybe a partner,
mm,
unfortunately, most of those times that expectation is not met. And if it is met, it's not met in the way that you expected. And it
mm,
leads to, sort of feelings of, failure, or,
mm,
maybe that you're taken advantage of, or things like that. But to answer your question of someone who feels really stuck, typically I like to just remind people, and obviously it's easier said than done, but that's where these sort of daily check-ins or weekly check-ins come into play, is, what do you think you can do today? What do you think you can accomplish today that will make you feel better, bring you a small amount of happiness? If we can build, actionable steps, completable goals on a daily basis, hopefully we can start to renew some trust in ourselves, or renew some faith in our ability or the things that we can do. Now, like you said, there are people who find themselves really stuck, and waking up in the morning saying, I'm choosing happiness today, just isn't a reality that they can live in. So that's when it becomes a little bit deeper, where you start to really dive into, okay, well, maybe what happened in childhood that you keep repeating to yourself, or what happened to you with your old job that you now find this internal narrative of yourself being stuck. You continually feed this to yourself and you can't get out of it. Now, I'm not an expert by any means, so sometimes when I'm speaking to people, or when I'm going through things with people, there is a moment where I say, "Hey, this may be worth a deeper dive in a therapeutic setting, not necessarily a mentor or a coach setting, but maybe you can work hand in hand. We can do some mentorship or some coaching, and
Mm,
if you feel so inclined, maybe you can reach out and have some help in a therapeutic setting." Now,
mm,
me as a coach and mentor, obviously can only do so much. And if these people really feel like, hey, we've done a lot of hard work, and I'm not sure that I'm feeling my greatest, then essentially there is a duty of care there to say, hey, maybe we need to take this next steps and really dive deep into what is causing this.
mm,
Um, Obviously, I like to do everything that I can and everything in my power to get you to a place of healing or feeling better about who you are, what you're doing, the steps that you're taking in your life. But I also understand that, you know, I can only do so much for people, and it would be a disservice to that person to say, well, let's just keep working hard. Let's be really positive today, because
mm,
if that's not working, maybe something else needs to be done. And I would be right there to walk that path with them and hold their hand through the process, but also say to them, like, maybe we do need to do something deeper. Maybe we do need to take the next steps here.
mm. I love that, man. No, I love that. It was very well said. So I guess to end it off here, what a very well spoken episode. If like someone's watching us right now and they're like doubting themselves, like what would you say to them, the viewer watching us right now?
Let's set actionable goals that we know that we can accomplish, and let's stack those up one day at a
Mm,
time, 1 hour at a time. We'll make some promises to ourselves. Hey, you know what? Today I'm going to make a big breakfast, or today I'm going to brush my teeth. Let's do that. Let's prove to ourselves that we can do it. And then tomorrow, let's set a little bit of a bigger goal. I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to make my bed. And then we're going to keep stacking those goals until you believe that you can do it,
mm,
until that self-doubt is so small and so quiet that even when it creeps up, you can say, I've proven to myself that you are not correct. I know that I
mm,
can do it.
mm. Well said, Colin. What a great episode. Guys, I'm actually really well pleased with this episode here today. I think that this was by far a very well spoken episode here on the SMO podcast. This was amazing. Colin, where can everybody go ahead and get connected with you? Where
Sure.
can we connect with you at?
So I'm on Threads. I'm on Instagram, TikTok. It's Colin Patrick Health. That's where you can find me on almost all platforms. DMs are always open. Calendly link is always open. I'm excited and happy to work with anyone who feels like they may need a little extra push in life.
100%, man. I mean, this was such a well spoken conversation. I honestly just listened. Definitely. There's not much people that I hear from that I just listen, and it was definitely an episode that people are definitely going to rewatch. They're going to rewatch. They're going to listen to it. They're going to come back to it. You're definitely a public speaker, man. I think you should dive more in deep into that. I think you should continue with it because you're definitely meant to be on stages, and you just got to keep going, man. You got to keep going. All right,
Yeah.
guys, this was a great episode. Go ahead and rewatch this episode. Like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to reach out to Colin on Threads, Instagram. This was by far a great episode on neuroplasticity and rewiring. And honestly, I mean, I love the conversation. Honestly, Colin, I'm gonna have to invite you to my podcast.
I
You're
would
gonna have
love
to
it.
jump on there, man. You'll hear a little bit from me this time. This one I was just listening, but
Right.
this
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
amazing, guys. Go ahead and rewatch this podcast and see you guys on the next episode. Peace.